Welcome back to the 𝐃𝐢𝐬𝐝 live show on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 10:30 a.m. New York time zone. Hope everybody's having a good day so far. Let me do a quick sound check right here. Make sure I'm actually recording. Last time there were 3 different streaming buttons I have to hit, and I only hit 2. Looks like we are good to go. And if at any time I lose sound or whatever, feel free to leave me a message. a message, because I have had a little bit of struggles with this live stuff recently until I get in the hang of things. What we're going to do here is let's first dissect what has happened since my last YouTube video. And I want to, and I'm not going to do this just to say, oh, look, I called something. That's not the point. I want you to see how something works, but although there's a bounce, where roughly I said there's going to be a bounce, I want to show you how, actually let me make my face big here. So this is important. I get a lot of follow-up messages on YouTube videos when I say something to the effect of, upside is more probable than downside right now. And then in that case, if price goes down, I'll get comments like, you were wrong. But in reality, according to the analytic tools that I had, it was actually more probable that price went up. It simply just didn't, right? That doesn't make necessarily somebody wrong. It just means the most probable scenario didn't happen. And right now is another one of those scenarios where I would feel inclined to say that some type of mini bounce is more probable than continued downside movement. However, there is decent argument for both sides. But if I had to say which one is slightly more likely, I would say some type of continuation of a bounce before down, as opposed to downside movement in a very immediate sense, right? Just more probable. I'm not saying I'm calling that. And if it goes down, then people would say, oh, you were wrong. But in reality, it actually was more probable. Does that make sense? But right now, the current price setup is developing into something that could be exactly that. So I want to dive into that just for a second, so we're understanding. When something is probable, it doesn't mean it has to play out, right? Okay. But I will also say I've been wrong a million times about a lot of stuff, because I'm talking about price 6 days a week, right? So if you're talking about the most unpredictable thing and among the most volatile / unpredictable items that you could ever see on Earth, and you're talking about it 7 days a week, you're going to be wrong a lot. So I'm not going to defend myself in that matter. But anyway, so check this out. Let's see how this is transpired here. So see how I have, this is from yesterday, a red range, yellow range. It's like a stoplight, red, yellow, green. All right, well, it just fell past the point of control. That's pretty bearish. So it looks like Bitcoin immediately is going to go to 39.4. Looks like Bitcoin's going to go immediately to 39.4, immediately to 39.4, right? So let's go to the 1 hour chart. And I want to show you how this range works. But the setup now, though, is actually, it could go either way. And I would guess that continuation to the upside is slightly more probable, but it could easily go the other way. So watch. This is 39.4, right? Let me get it exactly. There, 49. Oh, so that's with 03. So it's $3 off. But that's the area here, right? And so I was zoomed out. Had I zoomed in, I probably would have said 39,322. I would have been $80 lower. It went just below that line, but I was targeting this line here. And the way this range works is like this. The stoplight area, let me take off the weekly 10. So this is your more short-term time frame Bitcoin analysis, and then we'll go up the time frames. I essentially have a range that is lasting since that started back in January. So you could say this is the quarterly trading channel, right? Red, yellow, green. So green means it's getting good, potentially getting ready to bust out, kind of like a green light. And red light down here, so it's a stoplight, right? I saw that it broke below at that time. Price was here, just to see how ranges work, and you can even go down to the 5-minute chart to see this. And I already saw that price on the very low time frames have gone below, and this is why the lower time frames really can be used as a great tool. When price came down, it did not use this as support. You see that line? It went below it, had a lower high, lower low. Like this is that, even though the candles did not perfectly come from below the yellow line up to it, that doesn't matter. You missed it as support. That means it's statistically likely that the next bounce is going to be a lot lower than that one, which it was. Then you had a lower low, then a lower high. And then even though this formed a higher high, When it came back down, it simply didn't use it as support, and it's been using, that means that this is being used as resistance. So once the bottom of the point of control is used as resistance, it's extremely statistically likely that you have to go down to the next area before you can bounce. And that's why I said that. And it was extremely probable at that time, and it did work. So in this case, the most probable thing did happen, but the most probable thing does not always happen, right? I mean, and maybe it's my fault. I'm not very clear with my words sometimes when I'm saying that this is more probable than that. You know, maybe I should say, but it doesn't have to happen. I don't know if I'm lacking communication skills, or you know, folks who aren't getting the gist speak English as a second language, and it's not getting through correctly. Although I'm not for sure. Or, you know, I don't know, if it's just trolls, I really don't get it. But there are some people, you know, that I've seen in comments that, you know, I don't think they're just trolling. I think they sincerely, I think they're sincerely mad that if I say this is more probable and the opposite happens, like they get upset. And I want to try to, I don't know, I want to crusade against that. And so I want to be more clear with my words here. At this moment, what I'm seeing in the charts is there is a little disagreement between two tools that I use. So I'm going to show you right now why I think there's a very small edge to the upside, but I want to show you why it's not that great. But I will show you also here in just a few minutes how I would reconcile that in specific regards to when do I have a stronger edge. So right now I think it's just barely better than a coin flip. I'm going to show you why. And then I'm going to show you exactly when I get a better edge, right? Okay. So this chart right here says that this can bounce all the way up to 41.3 or 42.6. It looks probable on this chart. You got a strong bounce. You might be forming a higher low here. It looks okay. It has permission to do that, right? It at least has permission. It doesn't necessarily, this chart doesn't say it's going to. It says it easily has permission. If you mix that with the reaction of the traditional markets, they had a pretty strong reaction. Looks like it's going to get some follow through. The opening hour was a gap up. So usually gaps up on traditional markets have follow through. You sometimes have a backfill and then continuation. And this is the 1 hour chart. Because Bitcoin is following traditional markets so carefully and so closely, this chart here says it has permission. The traditional markets say, hey, we have a gap up. It's statistically likely we're going up. I think those two items combined give, at least throughout today, a slightly stronger edge to the upside. Okay, only with a shelf life of only 24 hours, or maybe even less, 12 hours or so. So for the rest of this daily candle, so the permission from the Bitcoin chart to go up, plus the data in the traditional markets, mixed with the idea that Bitcoin is following traditional markets, there's a slight edge that this bounce will get some form of continuation throughout the next 12 hours. Does that make sense? But there is disagreement in the charts. Therefore, there is a case for the downside. So obviously it could go up or down, right? And so you don't come to this channel for me to say it could go up or down. That's not very valuable. What is valuable is I want you to know which one has a slight edge and then when that edge essentially flips. So that's what I'm going to show you here. Lower time frames. And then I'm going to take off this tool and I'm going to use a different tool that has a year of history. Okay, so this might hold a little bit more weight, but that's the traditional markets. I mean, had a gap up. I'm going to go with, I think that gives a slight upside and edge. However, this is going back to January. So this is almost a year and a half range, right? I'm on the 8 hour, or actually I'm only on the 4 hour chart. Okay, I guess I can fit a whole year of time on a 4 hour chart. So that's good. This goes back to the 40K pump, all the way down from 10K to 40K, just pretty much a straight rush, right? And then a big sell off. Elon Musk was tweeting right here and then it pumped right after, okay? So that's back then. This chart is saying it went, so I'm going to zoom into this point here. And again, this is kind of like the quarter zone. Yellow is point of control. Green is, the 3/4 zone, kind of ready to break out of this massive range. I'm going to zoom into this part and go to let's go to the 5-minute chart here. And again, I'm going to use the lower time frames as a tool here. You can see that this line really was not used as support. It lost it on its trip down, and then on the way up, it got rejected, went above, but then immediately fell back below without using this as support. Here, let me zoom in. And that's called a failure. So this price action right here is not a rejection of this line. Rather, it failed that line. So this is a resistance, and resistance comes in two forms. First form is a straight up rejection, kind of like this. Here, let's zoom in. This is a straight up rejection, and that's one form of resistance. The other form of resistance is a failure, and there are two failures in a row. Got above, came down, did not use this as support. That's failure number one, failure number two. And what this is saying is it's used it as resistance once, it failed it twice. Looks like I lost connection just for a hot second. I'm not for sure why. All right, anyway. So this is saying because it came down to not use this line as support, got rejected once, failed twice. That's three forms of resistance. It needs to come down to the ultimate target of 37.7 or so, or a wick under 38. And when you zoom out, that does happen to finally align with the previous tool I was using, that channel, and that's getting close to this line here. So wick below in this area, it starts getting closer to here, right? And it would have to take its time to get there, so it'd have to go something like this to hit that area. Then they start aligning. Okay, so the different tools are saying different things. This area happens to align with the channel pretty well, and this is saying this has to happen before any type of bounce up. It disagrees. And when you go to the 4-hour chart, you mix on a different tool, which is the 4-hour RSI, you don't have a higher low yet. So typically, when the 4-hour is still making lower lows, it needs to make higher lows, at least one or two, and during those higher lows, price makes a lower low, a lower local low. So even though the 4-hour starts climbing like this, makes higher lows, that still means a lower low in local price, which would drive price down to that 37.7 range. And this needs to happen before RSI essentially gives its permission for price to bounce. So these tools together are totally disagreeing with the first analysis. So these are the two cases here for up and down, right? And because Bitcoin follows the traditional market so closely, I'm going to give a slight edge to the upside in the immediate sense, very, very short-term time frames. However, the important thing is, when does the probability totally flip? And it's really simple. It's extremely simple. Right now, I think there's a slight edge to the upside, not a very strong edge. I'm going to go back to the 1-hour chart. And because the tool that I'm using that gives me a slight edge to the upside, I'm going to use that to determine when do the probabilities flip. I think the probabilities flip even if a 5-minute candle comes back below this line, somewhere around 39.4. If it comes back below this line, well, yeah, I guess a wick. Yeah, if even a 5-minute candle closes below 39.4-ish or 39.350, 5-minute candle closes below there today, then that is when your probabilities flip to the downside, and then the other tool, the other chart, has the edge. And the other chart along with the 4-hour RSI signal. I think that's the point where you say, okay, Bitcoin, and that could just mean the stock market turned around, or Bitcoin's ignoring the stock market, it's going to go against it, which it does happen, and that's your ultra short-term time frame analysis. I think most folks know, at least if you're on here, I think most folks are aware of what my more midterm time frame analysis are, because I've been covering that on YouTube, but I wanted to show you a case of how ranges work, right? Yesterday I said it's going to hit 39.4. It hit that like almost perfectly. And right now is an exact moment of there's not really much edge to the upside or downside. So this is a perfect case of it could go up, it could go down. A lot of people make jokes and they don't, because they don't understand it. They're joking, but they think it's funny because it's true. Come on my channel seeing, it could go up or could go down. It's not helpful. So hopefully my explanation of this makes this, you see why this is helpful. All right. And what else do we have here? Okay, now, when I think there is more pressure down, if you walk up the time frames, get off the 5-minute and 1-hour chart, go to the 4-hour chart, The 4-hour chart and above, 4-hour to daily are saying the pressure is definitely down. You can have definitely some green candles, but I don't think anything extravagant to the upside is going to happen quite yet. And here's when that starts changing. I don't think anything extravagant. So even if 4-hour candles come up to the weekly 10, I'm going to draw out the weekly 10 EMA. So this red area is the weekly 10. I think pressure's down until a daily candle can close above this weekly 10. So I will make that red. And the ultra low term timeframes are giving permission for that to happen, right? At least to get up to there, right? So the very low timeframes, it looks like there's an edge to at least come up to here or get close to here. But the midterm timeframe says, I don't care about this. If it comes up here, the slightly larger time frame is saying it's probably going to get rejected or fail it. So that's a failure and that's rejection, right? That's what they're saying. When the probabilities flip is when you can get closures above the weekly 10 EMA. That's the first line. But then you have what's been resistance throughout this whole area. Let me take off the range here. This white line has been the mega resistance for quite a while here. So mega back in February, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then it got above, came perfectly down, used that support, lost it, and then once it lost it, it really started accelerating. The next line, and at this point, if you get closures above this, well then maybe it's more like a coin flip on the 4-hour to daily charts. You don't really have too much of an edge either way because you have immediate stronger resistance just above you. So therefore, the just because you close the candle doesn't mean you're free riding like on the highway with no traffic. You have a dump truck like in front of or a school. Have you ever been stuck? Oh shit! I'm on my face is big. Shit. Oh man. Sorry about that. So I have the weekly 10 out here. I haven't done that in a while. Left my face big and started talking. Sorry. So the lower time frames, I think it show a slight edge to at least to try to get up to this red line, which is the weekly 10. But if that happens, the 4-hour through daily charts are saying the pressure is still probable to the downside. The moment that the 4-hour to daily charts become more of a coin flip is when you get a daily closure above the weekly 10 EMA. Let's do this. A weekly closure above the 10 EMA. But the reason why that's a coin flip and it's not probability to the upside is because you have a stronger resistance just above. So this white line would be here, something like that. And all this is to say, in order to be, bullish on the 4-hour to daily charts, Bitcoin's got a lot of work to do. A lot of work to do. So a closure above here, it's probably a coin flip. Because you have a school bus. Have you ever been stuck behind a school bus? This would be the case of Bitcoin getting stuck behind a school bus. Okay, I'm driving, I'm on the road, I can go, but not really. You have a school bus, stopping in front of you every quarter mile or whatever it is in cities. I don't know. Out here, it's on county roads and stuff like that. But maybe a lot of you don't understand that analogy. But they're stopped behind a big semi or a dump truck or whatever. So once Bitcoin can close dailies above this monthly 10 EMA is when there is probabilities the edge flips on the time frames 4-hour to daily. So different time frames using the same tools for the 4-hour to daily analysis. But on the short-term time frame analysis, 5 minute to 1 hour, I use 2 different tools to show you when the probabilities flip. But on the 4-hour to daily, I'm using the same tools to show you when probabilities start flipping. And right now, even beyond that, I think there's a slight edge to the upside on the short-term time frames, but a strong edge to the downside on the time frames just above that. Am I making sense? Which means, so if the most probable things happen on both time frames, which isn't guaranteed, all it means is this is going to be a baby bounce before more downside. If the most probable thing at the moment happens. However, price action can change, the probabilities flip if price action does something very specific. So this is my short-term and, mid-short-term time frame analysis here. Let me make my face small and not talk thinking that you're seeing my chart here. All right, before I forget. And that's what we got. So that's how we use ranges, different time frames, different tools, and hopefully I'm communicating extra clearly in this live chat, as opposed to creating confusion and not being clear with my words here. All right, now let me. What else do we have? Yeah, really, that's honestly all you really need to look at on price action, because nothing significant is going to happen until something breaks. And right now, so zooming out a little bit farther here on a grand scheme of things, I'm going to put back on the trading channel. So there's going to be nothing crazy to the downside until this is broken. Let me zoom in. So this is the trading channel, the quarterly trading channel. So now I'm mixing all three tools. Nothing crazy is going to happen until this is broken to the downside. Okay, so nothing crazy to the downside is going to happen until this is broken. Nothing crazy to the upside is going to happen until this white line is broken. Therefore, we're kind of in the middle. And there's not going to be what you would call a range resolution until one of these two things happens. So anything between here, the probabilities aren't going to be extremely clear. And once one of these two breaks, the probabilities and therefore trading becomes way more probable, and it's going to be a lot easier to trade, right? But right now, no matter what you're doing, the edge that you'll have on your trading for some systems, maybe if you're an EMA trader, like you're only doing EMA crosses, you already know the statistics really don't change. There could be some exceptions to this, but just in a grand scheme of things, yeah, the range resolution is somewhere below about, let's call it 37K and change, or the monthly 10. And that's when your probabilities significantly start flipping on the midterm timeframes. And I think, so therefore I've covered in this first 25 minutes here, the low time frames, the short mid, 4 hour to daily, and then slightly zooming out just a little bit higher time frames than that. I've covered what's going on. So the third one I covered just means there is no edge either way, right? Because there's no range resolution. So anything between the upper and lower side of the range is just noise. So for the slightly larger time, let's say 2-day through 5-day, it might just be noise for the moment. Although the 5-day does have some pretty bearish stuff going on, which I covered in my last YouTube, not live video, but yesterday's video. I addressed the larger time frames, and there's a lot of stuff being bearish right now. All right, and I think I'm ready to open this up to questions. Okay. Yeah, sorry, David. Yeah, I talked over the screen for a second there. I haven't done that in a long time. All right. Okay, short term. That's a good question. So David asked, what is short term? I don't think, if you go to Investopedia, I'm not for sure if there's one definition, but can you see? Yeah, you can see where my, I'm going to have my cursor up here, all right? See where my cursor is? 5 minute, 15 minute, 30 minute, 1 hour. I would call 5 minute to 1 hour short term. Something like that, short term. And then, a little bit higher, 12 hour to 2-day, let's call it 12, something like this. 12 hour to 2-day, could be your midterm. And then 5-day through monthly are your long term. Just rough, loose definition. And a lot of times, this, and watch. And so this is what creates a lot of, maybe I should make a visual of this I might just start doing this. Because it is kind of confusing. Sometimes this is bullish. This is bearish. And this is neutral. Something to that effect. Which honestly might describe the situation right now. So again, you have a stoplight, right? You have red, yellow, green, a stoplight. And so the short-term time frames, I think there's a tiny edge. And honestly, I would probably put this just barely better than, so this would be neutral. It's barely better than neutral. 12 hour through daily, I don't think it's full-on bearish, but I would say it's kind of close. I would say it's like this vector. So this is extremely bearish. This is neutral, which would flip it yellow. So if it were like here, it'd be yellow. If it's one tick under that, it'd be red. So this is, but it can't go this way because it only goes from up like from 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock, right? And this would be extremely bullish. This would be slightly less bullish, so on and so forth. So I think the this time frame, 12-hour to 2-day, is not quite full on bearish, but it's a little closer. And this is just, and the low time frames are barely bullish, and midterm time frames, or I mean the larger time frames, I don't know. You had 2 monthly green candles with the closure over the monthly 10. I would say it's neutral at this point. I would call this a flat neutral. Therefore, a yellow arrow should be the least common because you have to be exactly at 3 o'clock, right? On the clock. You got to be exactly. So if it's like 2:59, it turns green. If it's 3:01, it turns red, right? But so this, but I would say I would give it neutral. Honestly, this might be the case right now. And so this is what causes a lot of confusion over YouTube. I might be talking about this time frame, or no, actually, I talk mostly about the mid time frames. You know, I'm bearish, cross bad. This is cross bad, right? That's what cross bad is. It's more midterm time frame stuff. And then price pumps $1,500, and people say you're wrong. I'm like, no, I was talking about these time frames, right? And maybe I should just have some type of visual on the side or something that kind of shows my thoughts on each. But yeah, I think that's a great question, by the way. Hopefully this visual is helping. I hope that's helpful. Yeah, Tim is like our meteorologist of severe weather. Yeah, buddy, you know what weird thing is it gives an edge to the downside on Bitcoin is if I have plans to be out in my yard doing yard work or gardening work. It's like every time I have plans, okay, I'm going to have hands in mud or dirty or covered in grass or whatever for 3 hours or 4 hours at a time. And I can't be on my phone. I can't check my chart. Anytime that happens, I swear, it might have 100%. It's better than the moon chart. Like Tim's gardening schedule is the best short-term time frame bearish indicator in the world. I promise you. Even the capitulation of Wyckoff back in May, it happened when I was planting my garden about 10 days after I planned to, and it happened. And people weren't happy that I wasn't on my phone or on my computer, but I didn't know because I had to get that planted or else, and honestly, I did plant a little late and I didn't get very much yield out of my tomato plants or anything. The only thing it did well were my black raspberry and raspberry plants. But anyway, so my gardening schedule, I might give, Twitter a funny update on Tim's gardening schedule as the weather gets warmer because it has 100% hit rate so far in terms of meteorologist. All right. If Joe asked if BTC taps the weekly, what would BPRO roughly be given its positioning above the weekly? Yeah, that's a really good question. So if Bitcoin comes up to tap, so he's not saying blow past, but at that point, where will BPRO be? Given that BPRO's structure is pretty strong. And again, BPRO's a community coin, so I'm not going to give you exact sell signals. I got to be a little flaky with this. I'm going to give you a disclaimer. I can't be ultra, I can't tell you selling strategies or sell a third here, sell a third there, whatever, 20 bag. I can't tell you that stuff. But it is a great question. I'll give you some form of answer. Well, let's measure from current price up to the next major obstacle, which is just a trend line from the top to the like this third higher low or something like that. It's a 40% increase, which really Bitcoin only needs to go up 3 or 4% for that to happen because BPRO's been very volatile, right? So you just had a 30% move here, and Bitcoin didn't move more than 3 or 4%. So, BPRO in this positioning can easily 10 to 12x the percentage of Bitcoin. So that's fine. So 40%, let's see what that would mean for Bitcoin. That's not always the case, though, because a lot of times Bitcoin outperforms BPRO, but right now BPRO's been kicking some butt. That's 5%. Yeah, so I would say it might actually get slightly above that line and create a failure as opposed to a rejection, something around there. So, but if Bitcoin flies above its weekly 10 and closes above, BPRO it wouldn't get rejected there, and therefore, you wouldn't want to sell here. But somewhere around this box here When Bitcoin, if Bitcoin gets to its weekly 10, I would say BPRO would be somewhere around 0.0066. Somewhere around 0.0066 would be my guess. My second best guess would be a trend line. Maybe it's losing steam. So this would be my second most probable guess here. So the second most probable, when Bitcoin is at the weekly 10, BPRO only gets up to here. However, I think with the 5% move on Bitcoin, BPRO could easily get to there. So these would be my two areas where I think is most probable BPRO would be once Bitcoin is specifically tapping its head, bumping its head under or at the weekly 10 EMA. Hopefully that's helpful. Yeah, that's a really good question. Yeah, Joe, that means you're paying attention because you're using, terminology I use a lot and all that stuff. So that's a really good question. Okay, 3S. Ooh, near 3S. Okay. Yeah, it might be a little late to get a near 3S. All right, but we'll take a look. All right, we got idea. All right. Okay, so I will look at near first. All right. It's kind of a tough call because you don't have a higher low established yet on the 4-hour RSI, but this isn't Bitcoin, so this can just go from lower low kablam. So it really doesn't follow that rule. Bitcoin follows that rule very, very closely, but altcoins, they behave in their own way. So, different coins, they move like different animals. A lion runs differently than a horse, right? Let's see here. I don't think the RSI will be a great, at least the 4-hour RSI is not going to help me. The daily, ooh, yeah, that's bad. All right, so this will have a strong edge, but to the immediate sense, this could get one more pump before heading down. This looks like this is going to play out some downside, most likely, because it got rejected from the bullish control zone, the green area. See this green area, and it failed, so it couldn't use the RSI or the EMA. So this white line is the EMA. Got rejected again, went below the EMA. Looks like it's going to bump its head, but it might have continuation to the upside for a little bit here, for even a couple days, potentially. So there are mixed signals. I don't think there's much of an edge right now on very, very low time frames. However, if near were able to get, so not near 3S, but near, if near got up to 17.25 or 1780, and then the daily is bumping its head on that EMA, that might be a good time to then flip to the 3S token. I don't know if I would enter right now. It's kind of in the middle of, it's in no man's land right now. And this is near 3S. Yeah, you got lower lows and lower highs, so this is kind of agreeing. Yeah, it looks like it looks like near wants to give a little bit more upside before it comes down again. And this chart is agreeing because you have a lower low and lower high structure. So on this chart, what you would want to be looking for is, I would go down to maybe like the 30-minute or 1-hour chart. You're going to want to see a higher low. You're going to want to see it stick its landing and then have a green hour. Something to that effect. and that might give near time on this. So as near 3S goes down, that means the first chart I was looking at, will go up, and it'll probably hit one of those two targets I was talking about. And then if it does actually end up going down, you'll see something to this effect. And that would give the 1 hour RSI time to bounce. So this is the EMA, right? So the white line, I just extended it. And that would give this time to bounce and gain some structure before breaking out of the bearish control zone. Yeah, it looks like it wants to give a tiny, but I don't know if either has a strong edge right now. That's how I would play it, though. I don't think right now is a great entry. It looks like this wants to come down to maybe form. And honestly, it's more, since you have a lower high and lower low structure, this looks like, there is edge to the downside, as in, this is not a great entry point right here, because you have lower lows and lower highs. Well, I guess technically you have one local higher high, but you don't have a higher low yet. So because this did form a higher high on a closure basis, you don't have an edge until it also forms a higher low, and therefore you have two check marks, higher high and higher low. Right now you only have one. So because you only have one, you're in a no trend on the 1 hour. And you really need a 1 hour uptrend on the 3S token, which would give a 1 hour downtrend on near before you'd want to do that. And that's how I would play that. I might not be answering your question exactly how you wanted it, but that would give you targets for when it, what you'd be looking for as a target's hit to determine, okay, should I go into this? But if those targets are hit, and this makes a lower low, something to that effect, that probably wouldn't be a good entry. Because then you still only have a higher high, and because you make a lower low, it's likely that the next high will be lower, and when it comes down, then you actually have a lower low and a lower high, two check marks, that would be a downtrend. That's how I would play that. Yeah, if you're not in it already, I don't think there's an edge to enter right now, is another way I can say that. Okay. MTV, yeah, MTV's having some real problems. At least on the chart. I don't know much about the inner workings of the company. I don't know how you labeled a company or it probably is a company on paper. So, or a project. That's what a lot of people say. Projects. Yeah, that's really bad. It just broke down below that origin line. This is bad. And people thought I was an idiot for selling at 1.2 cents. Right there. I'm glad I did. I cashed out right there. And it was my best trade of 2021. Best swing trade by a mile. It could use this line as support. I'll make it. It might use this line as support. Maybe. You have a pretty massive horizontal from this wick here to that wick there. All these support. That's going to intersect with the bottom origin line. Which is suggesting this is going to come down to 0.003 with a wick below it. It looks like it's going to wick below 0.003. I would say that's by far the most probable thing to happen. The second most probable thing is that it bounces at 0038. So most probable, second most probable. Let me make sure I'm answering your question. What do you think of MTV? Is it going to go lower? Yeah, yeah, it's at 41 right now. I think it's going to go down to 38, 0038. So I would say yes to your question, but very specifically, I think it's most probable it comes all the way down to here. Second most probable is it bounces here. That would be my answer for MTV. Because this intersection of a very important horizontal with the bottom origin line, essentially, well, actually, it's not the bottom because I mean, I could technically go like, yeah, could technically go like that. But yeah, it looks like it's gonna hit that. All right. And if you want it for new, folks who aren't great savvy with TradingView, which I wouldn't call myself savvy yet. I have a VIP who educates me on something almost every day, but he's making me a lot better at it. But all you do is you hit Control on your computer. So I don't know if you can do this on the phone. Hit Control on a computer or Option on a Mac. You select two of them. So I click that one and I click that one, and then I drag. All right. And then somebody asked about IDEA. Yeah, it's at its bottom area of support. It really broke down. Did it hit my 22 to 24? Yeah, it hit my target. Okay, so from my latest video, I did say I think it's targeting this. With the potential to go as high as 32, but so I did hit that target, and it came straight back down to this horizontal. I don't know. I don't think there's a strong edge either way, but there is a way to determine when there is an edge. If you close a daily below 10 cents, the edge it looks like it then come down to 8 and a quarter. Or no. 8.25 cents. So yeah, 0.0082. It could go either way, because I mean it is bouncing on this a lot. I guess there would be a little bit of edge to the upside, at least up to 13.7. But pretty much all you're thinking about on IDEA is, does this hold or does this not? And if Bitcoin turns around right now and gets bearish while it's at its low, that does start increasing the chance that this breaks down below this support and has price discovery down. But Bitcoin looks okay right now. It's floating. Traditional market's doing well. Therefore, with those two things combined, I think this has a probability of I think it has a slight edge at least up to 13 cents. Somewhere around 12.7, 13. But after that, I don't know. I think this is going to depend on Bitcoin. And, it could be a lot of buyers step in and just keep defending this. If Bitcoin goes down to 37, this could hold the line. It could wick below on a daily, but then buyers defend it and it closes the daily above. That is possible. That's why I'm saying it won't become more probable to the downside until a daily closes below 10 cents. But right now, very short-term time frames, I think it has easily permission to go up close to 13 cents. What happens beyond that? I mean, I don't really want to make guesses because it's just in a big range, essentially. So it does, yeah. And there's not going to be huge probability flips until there's a range resolution. Kind of like Bitcoin. All right. That's IDEA. All right, I got a couple of community members. So somebody asked about Pedro. Pedro, you asked about Ethereum Classic. I will, and then CJ Wars, do you not think we're in a bullish running flat correlation with an ABC wave? I don't do wave stuff, CJ Wars, so I am not qualified to attempt to answer that question. All right, I got to skip down to Bruce Swearington. Community member asked, VET3S, I'm in a trade. I mean, it's not a question, but I think I can understand your question. So I will resort to the VeChain chart itself. That's pretty bearish. Okay, daily bearish, 12-hour bearish, 4-hour bearish. Or no, the 4 hours where it starts maybe turning around. 2-hour, it looks like it. So the 1 hour to 2 hours say it's going to get a little bit of a bounce, but then those timeframes start bumping its head into the 8-hour, 12-hour daily, which are all bearish. And what's in the middle of it, what's neutral is the 4 hour. So right now the 4 hours neutral, if you can imagine that yellow, 8 hour through daily are bearish, and then the lower term timeframes are slightly more bullish. So there's a mix across the board. So that's going to be a little bit more difficult. But I think there is a little edge to the downside. Yeah, if you're already in the trade, I mean, honestly, it looks pretty safe. Just know that you're going to have some moments where you have corrections to the upside. And the moment that, you might think about bailing is when you have both let's go to the 1 hour chart. When you get a higher high and a higher low. So the most recent local high is about here. I wouldn't call this a local high. This is still falling. So yeah, it could come all the way up to this point, and it's still technically, that's just a correction to the upside. But on the 3S token, that means the 3S token goes down 30%. So watch out for that. It could still be in a downtrend easily on a 1 hour downtrend, and the 3S token drops 30%. So be very careful. Like this VeChain, here, let me make myself big. Oh, I mean, with those charts, VeChain's already volatile. The 3S token makes it 3 times as volatile. It's a little harder to swing trade that stuff and to be in trades for a longer period of time. Like it's a lot better. I mean, in that situation where you're already trading a volatile coin, making it even more volatile, you really need to zoom in on the lower time frames. I want to be clear with that, okay? It's tough to swing trade 3S tokens. It's tough to swing trade futures. It really is. So, going to the VeChain 3S token itself, which I don't have saved. I'm going to look at it on KuCoin as opposed to Huobi or whatever else has it. You're in a 1 hour no trend. You have a higher low, but you have a lower high. So you only have one check mark for each. You're in a 1 hour no trend. Therefore, you don't really have a great edge either way. But you do have a higher low, but you also have a lower... well, I guess it's not a confirmed lower high yet, because this candle has not closed. And even if it does, the next candle could keep going. So it's going to take a couple hours to confirm a no trend. So I guess technically I would say this is hanging on a thread in a 1 hour uptrend. So I think you're fairly safe if you're in the trade. I would start... Let me go to the 5 minute. If it starts breaking below 34.7, I don't know. I'd probably bail. I'd start getting worried about it at 37 even. And I would bail. I would make sure I'm out by this. Now, I don't know what your entry is. So if I knew your exact... So this is something I would do on Discord. I would go over, what's your entry, like, where to bail. So just a rough estimate, or just structurally, because I don't know your entry. So maybe your entry was here. And therefore, I would suggest, maybe bail now. It's going below your entry. Like, just get out and wait for a better entry. So it really depends on your entry. So I want to give you a disclaimer. I'm giving you, just very general ideas here, which are not tailored to your entry. That's a very specific disclaimer. This is not financial advice. Not a financial advisor. This is just general ideas of the chart without relation to your exact entry and your exact trade. But yeah, these are the two levels that I would be looking at in very, very general terms. On the very low time frames, 5 minute charts, because it's hard to play this. It's just too volatile to play it much higher. All right, what are your thoughts on PDEX? I mean, I don't know what my thoughts are on it. It looks like it wants to come back. It's digging itself out. I don't know. It's losing the bottom here again. So it looks like it's going to come down to 4.25, or make a higher low. So these would be my top two most probable. I'll give you the top three. I would say perhaps the most probable is because the stock market seems to be reacting to the high inflation, CPI data today. Because I think they were already expecting I think they were expecting high inflation. Therefore, because the CPI data came out as expected, the dump from yesterday, the price that's already baked in. So I would say most probable it gets some sort of bounce here. How high it goes, I mean, I wouldn't make guesses above $6.40, but right now it kind of looks like in this area to 640 might be the most probable. Second most probable is it needs to come down and retest this horizontal somewhere at 420. And then third most probable is it tries to come up and test this line up here at 780. Third most probable. So it is going to bounce, go to 780. And those would be my three specific thoughts on PDEX. From a project standpoint, I mean, I really don't know. It's way below its weekly 10. You know, it's getting rejected by it. Yeah, it's not joining the party. Yeah, those would be my top three most probable. So hopefully that describes my thoughts on it. Thanks for the super chat, by the way. All right, let me go back up. So somebody asked about Ethereum Classic and then MTRG. All right. Huh. It's not positioned too badly. It's positioned a little bit better than Bitcoin is. And positioned a little bit better than Ethereum itself, at least on the on a large EMA standpoint, weekly and monthly. What was its weekly closure? It closed above. Man, this is a tough one. Oh. So to determine what's going to happen next, I would go down to the 1 hour chart and I would throw on the monthly 10 EMA and the weekly 10 EMA using this indicator here. It's called MTFEMA, right? So I would go to the 1 hour chart, throw on these two EMAs using this indicator. I don't think there's an edge either way right now. When your probabilities begin to flip is when on the 1 hour time frame, if you can see it go above the white and use it as support. So that's two conditions: get above and use it as support. Two things have to happen for your edge to flip. Getting above does not flip your edge, in my opinion, because there's still a strong chance it will fail the line, which means goes above and comes right back below. So under two conditions for the probabilities to flip: above and use as support. I think probabilities flip to the upside. Probabilities flip to the downside when the inverse happens, but with the red. It goes below and uses as resistance. That's when your probabilities flip to the downside. Probabilities also flip to the downside if it starts like tanks below and, you know, it closes an hourly, let's say it closes an hourly candle below this wick here. So without using this as resistance. So sometimes down moves, they do just fly past in the down direction. It could just go bam. So when do my probabilities start flipping is if a 1 hour closes below 36.5. That would be a second condition for probabilities to flip to the downside. But I don't think the same is true because it could go way past here, but I still think it has to use it as support for the upside. So those are the three conditions. Yeah, right now it's kind of in the middle. It really could go either way. Let me look at the daily, see if it's saying anything else. The daily looks, it's on a trend line. I mean, kind of split best fit line. So this is saying it could bounce. But all this structure is saying this is bad. So you have a mixed review. So it's also 50-50. You can't quite tell. You have two different fairly important things happening. Yeah, right now it's up in the air. And I think your probabilities flip on the lower time frames using the 1 hour chart in these two EMAs. But right now I don't think an entry or taking on position, I don't think you'd have an edge right now. All right. Another Harrison community member asked for Uno. And then I'll go back to MTRG or whatever that was. Daily RSI has all lower lows and lower highs. That's not good. Same with the 12. Same with the 12-hour, 8-hour, 4-hour. So things start flipping around for a potential bounce at the 2-hour. So the 1 hour to 2 hour being on the same team are probably not strong enough to beat in a tug of war the 4 hour through the daily. This team's much stronger. So I think pressure is down. But if the 4 hour can go on this team, I think that's when the edge starts becoming a coin flip. So like, typically the 1 hour through 4 hour have to be in agreement to flip the daily. Typically. But right now the 4 hour is on team daily. So I think the pressure's down. Right now it looks like this is going to break. And what would it looks like? Yeah, or it looks like it's going to touch the bottom of this at 1530. I think that's most probable right now. The probabilities can flip though. If the 4 hour RSI, so this is the main tool I would honestly be using. That with the trend line. If the 4 hour RSI can get above its EMA and use it as support and tick up one more time. So 3 things have to happen. Get above, use it as support, and then have a closure tick above. That's when you have a coin flip of up or down. But right now the pressure is down, the probabilities are to the downside, but that's when they start flipping and it becomes neutral. It becomes a coin flip. So right now I would say it's targeting 0.1525. I think that's most probable right now. And then I can't tell you much after that because, by that time the stock market might, be influencing Bitcoin in, a different way, whether that's stronger to the upside or to the downside. I wouldn't do an analysis much beyond that. But right now it's not joining the party. It hasn't, done much above the weekly 10 EMA. This is not one of the stronger coins right now. So, yeah, I think this down pressure will have it hit that target. But at least I'm giving you the exact moments that those probabilities start flipping. All right, MTRG. Never heard of this one. Meter. Oh, I guess I have heard. I've looked at it before. I have stuff on this chart. Well, it hit my target. Hit both targets. Hit that, and hit here. So this is moving pretty regularly. It looks honestly pretty good. This looks so from here over, it looks good. All the rest of the chart doesn't look great. So since the middle of March, it looks good. This posturing is honestly not bad. I think your next point of resistance is up here right at $4, almost exactly on the dot. I think this could easily come down to the weekly 10 at 230. And if that were to happen and Bitcoin looks strong, that would probably be a good setup because that'd be a big, I think it would have permission to come up all the way to $4, which would be like a 70% move. Yeah, that'd be pretty big. It might hang out in here though, and you wouldn't get that 70% move. But as of now, I think it could come all the way down here to 230, 240, be healthy, and then have permission to do that. Especially if at the moment it comes down here, Bitcoin is not doing anything, crazy, stupid, bad. That would be a really good setup, actually. But right now it's in the middle, so I can't tell if it's going to come down to here or just use this as support and go up. It's kind of up in the air. But this would be a good entry, and its next pit stop is around $4 to $4.50. $4 to $4.50 would be the next. This one's going to have this one, if it does continue going up, it's extremely likely it's going to do a stepping stone type of deal. It's very likely. Wow. I'm not having any luck right now. I swear I clicked that. All right, it looks like it's going to do a stepping stone because there's so much activity here. in order to get through this, it's like crawling through mud or jello. Like you can't just zoom past it. Like if this continues going up, it's very, 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 very likely going to have to do something like this. And it could do something like this. You know, it's just some type of stepping stone. Not every low will be a higher low. You might have, you know, a couple that break trend, but it's going to be some type of stepping stone position. The moment it starts breaking down is when you close, I would say a week. If it closes a week below the weekly candle, I think, you know, it's going to come back down, potentially to all-time lows at $1. But right now, it doesn't look like that's what's going to happen. As long as Bitcoin's above 37.7, I think this one has a good chance of hitting $4. All right. Yeah, that's honestly, that coin looks like it has something different going on. I mean, it was weak this whole time, but it joined the party. So I don't know if they had a release of something in mid-March, or it doesn't look like a big YouTuber talked about it, because then it would just be like, bam! Like that's YouTubers, you know, big YouTubers talking about something, getting their followers to buy it. It creates stupid crap like this. So this is pretty healthy. Yeah, that coin looks pretty healthy right now. All right, where do you think? Let me. All right, I'll do FTM after I look at Bruce's question. Thanks, Tim. Oh, not for that. Yeah, okay. So, hey Tim, B Pro, please. Hey Andre, I went over B Pro a little earlier, but probably 28 minutes into this stream. I think I said the two more probable things to happen would be if it has, you're gonna have to go to a lower time frame, like the 1 hour chart. I would say the two most probables is it hits this trend line from peak to peak on a low time frame. And let me take off the EMAs. If Bitcoin can do something here to the upside, I would say the most probable are it hits somewhere around 0.066, or if it really is out of steam, it might only come up to 0.0057 to the upside. And then this trend line right here is when things start getting hairy to the downside. But I wouldn't be freaked out until that happens. A daily closure below 0.0045 would be a signal for further downside. But until then, I would expect it to bounce. And that would be the very specific condition to start being a little bit more bearish. But as of now, I think these two targets are more probable. I don't know which one's more probable, but I would say those are the top two most probable. So somebody asked how to find the weekly 10 indicator. All right. I use this one. Type this in, and you need to star it. Type in 5 space exponential space and space this until it shows up. Once it shows up, you need to star it, and it's by Unknown Unicorn. And then it'll pop up and it'll look like this over here. You can see this. I can't zoom into this area, but it'll look like this. Something like that. And then you can hit the gearbox and then switch this to 10. Uncheck everything, and when you go to the week, so right now that's the 1 hour 10. But if I go to the week, now it's the weekly 10. That's one way to do it. But if you want to stay on the 1 hour chart and see it, all you do is go to indicators, type in MTF, star it. Once you star it, okay, it'll be there as you open this. Star it, MTF EMA. Now it's over here. You hit the gearbox. You go to inputs. You pick 1 week. Put the number 10. Make it red or whatever color you like. Bam, and then hit the eyeball for it to appear, and that's how you do that. So this is the weekly 10 EMA on the 1 hour chart. All right. Hey, so who asked that question? So Rocket Mail, you should, I can't remember what the playlist is called. You need to go to my channel and watch my TradingView tutorial. It's 28 minutes long. It's a pretty damn decent it's a pretty damn decent TradingView tutorial. You should watch it. Like, it shows you how to save templates. Like, it's free information. It takes 28 minutes to do. To actually follow along and pause it and do it, it might take you 45 minutes to an hour. But if you don't know, how to do the 10 EMA, you're going to learn a lot of stuff. We're just watching that 28-minute video. I promise you. Just go to my playlist, and it might be called learning trading or something like that, or trading basics or something to that effect. But the thumbnail says how to set up a chart, and I think that's the title of it. Just go to my playlist. All right. Okay, who did I skip over? Hathor. Bought at 66. Okay, this is not a community coin, so I can give you sort of clear Pokemon card trading advice. Whew. So you bought at 6. Thanks for your entry. So essentially what you're asking is, what do I do now? Do I bail? I think is kind of the question. 8-hour and above charts are all pretty bearish. It starts sort of turning around. The 2-hour and below are saying it wants to bounce. The 4 hours neutral. And remember, in order for the lower time frames to even have a chance to flip the higher time frames, you need the 1 hour to 4 hour on the same team. And right now, the 4 hour is essentially in the middle. So right now, you have a tug of war team over here and a tug of war team over here, and the 4 hour is like the referee. And you only have 1 to 2 hour here, and you have the 8 hour through 2 day over here. Like, this is strong edge to the downside. I mean, over time, it could have a couple green hourly candles, but you really need the 4 hour RSI to get above its EMA. So down here, you need this to get out of the red zone, or at least to bounce on its EMA a couple times. Before it even, and that's when it has a chance to to beat these in a, like, it has a chance. But right now, I mean, there's very, 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 very small chance of upside potential for this, and you're in the hole right now. Let's see here. So just note that you do have a nice higher. So on the very, very tiny time frames, you have a higher high and higher low structure. Your entry is around here. Okay, now I'm just drawing circles on my chart. 7%. I don't know, man. So if I were in this type of spot trade, I would at least, I don't know, I would. So this is not advice for you, but if I entered at 66, we're at a loss right now, I would at least bail halfway, get out of half my trade at about 60, just over 60 cents, 60, 90, something like that. Because the reason I say half is because once it gets up there, it does have a chance for the 4 hour to be on this team. And it could come all the way up here, and you could get out at your entry and wait, and then wait for a nice higher low. It could happen. But also, it could easily just get rejected from this area, because the 4 hour, that's when it has to decide which team it's on, and it decides to stay a referee or decides to go to the other team. I would probably bail halfway at this point. And then, if it starts going down, I would probably bail the rest once it closes like a 1 hour below 57.25. But it depends on what you want this to do for you. You know, like, did you go in hard? Like, you know, did you go spend all your portfolio on it and all that stuff? You know, that's very general advice of what I would do if I were in a, you know, moderate size spot trade. It's not an aggressive, you know, I didn't throw a ton of money at it, something like that. It really depends on how this purchase fits into your portfolio. I would, you know, I would say I would be able to give you better, not advice. I'm not giving you financial advice, but I would be able to tell you what I would do in that situation a little bit better. But that's the gist, which is highly contingent upon what your plan is and how heavily you went into it. But that's the gist of kind of how I would do things. All right. Harris. Okay. Trias, One Earth, Bolt. Okay, and then I gotta go. Well, actually, I gotta kind of go now. All right, we'll look at Trias. Actually, I see Bolt. I got to do this fast. Ooh, Bolt actually doesn't look bad. Honestly, very simple analysis for Bolt. Throw on the weekly 10. As long as it's holding this as support, I think it's got pressure up. But once it closes the daily below, I think it needs to come back down to 0.0037. But as long as it's holding above the weekly 10, I think in general, you have a better chance for upside. Yeah, weekly 10 is the name of the game for that one. Trias might actually be in a similar scenario. Yeah, it is. It really is. Trias is in a very similar. See that? Look at that. Very similar scenario. As long as dailies are not close and below the weekly 10, I think it has a chance to come up to the top of the. I mean, it could go up to $8. Yeah, I think I would eagle eye daily closures, which happen at 8 p.m. New York time. And I would eagle eye the weekly 10. Make sure that there's no closure below there. I think the analysis is pretty similar for both of those. And then One Earth. Oh, I do that every time, don't I? I had a community member, like, you know, have me look into this, and just a heads up, so if you take all coins that will ever be in circulation, I can't remember what number it is. Let's just say it's like 1 billion or whatever, right? But let's just call that X. But that's not the circulating supply. That's what in the future it will be, right? The current coin circ is X divided by 13. So on its road to becoming fully, all coins in circulation, the inflation will be 13x. Just a heads up. Because of that, you're going to want to look into the tokenomics of this. If it plans on a big, like Glimmer got destroyed. It released a crap ton of tokens. It had an inflation event of like 120%, which means in one instant, more than double the coins from 1 second to the next second. There were more than 2 times the coins in one instant, and the price just went kablam. It's recovered a little bit pretty well since then, but it had like a month and a half where it just went straight down. I think it dropped 70%. You need to look at the tokenomics of this to see if it's going to be an even steady release, if they're going to have, rewards events where, you need to see if they even have a plan, if it's clear at all. If it just says something fluffy, then you don't know, and that's not good. So you need to watch out for that. You need to ID what the tokenomics are in the release of the tokens to get to the full coins max supply. You need to know that journey, especially when the current supply is like less than 5 times. So if it's like this over X over 5, that's when you need to start worrying about it. But things like Bolt, the cool thing about Bolt is that all the coins are in CoinCirc, or they're all circulating. There are no inflation events, right? It's deflationary. Not necessarily deflationary, but it's zero inflation through my understanding. It doesn't look good. It looks like it wants to, it broke below this projector. So, I mean, to me, it looks like it wants to hit 15.6. Looks like it wants to hit that line. Yeah, that's what I got. All right, I do have to get going here. My lady's knocking on my door. This is our reserved gym time. So thanks. I will see y'all on Thursday at 10:30 a.m. New York time. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you next